And in 1995, I was in a psychiatric institution with major anxiety disorder, panic disorder, PTSD, and depression. So welcome to the conference. I'm so happy you're here.
And so I don't mean to be flip, I really don't, but it's my story and I'm not ashamed, I'm not embarrassed. It's why I'm here with you today.
I am Tammy West, and that is my story. Welcome to Consider Yourself Hugged, a place to find comfort and support as you navigate your mental and emotional well-being. So sit back and relax, unless you're driving, and get ready for this week's hug. Last week, I don't know if this is a good way to start our time together, but after we finish recording, it always pops up with rendering the recording, and it didn't. And my heart just like sank to the ground because I thought I forgot to hit record. So, I mean,
no, I remember you hitting record and I have to hit okay. So I remember that happening.
Well, if ever you don't get the little pop-up, then say, hey, I didn't get the pop-up, because like our episodes used to be like 20, 30 minutes, which is still a lot to not hit record. But lately it's been like an hour, and that's a lot to record and have to regroup. So,
yes.
Yeah. So, hi.
Hello.
I'm glad you're here. And we won't go into details, but Michelle's had a difficult week. And so those of you who are praying people, just keep her in your prayers, right?
Thank you. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So here we are, and if you've been with us, like we did the positive psychology series, and we knew what was coming up each week. And then Michelle had this great idea to do a holiday mental health series, but we sort of mapped it out a little bit. And you all may not know either. We talk in the mornings at least once, maybe twice a week, while Michelle's driving to work and while I'm walking, and that's some of our best planning time. So we kind of laid it out, and we decided that depression was our first week. So this week, I think a natural follow-up is anxiety. Ah.
It goes so well with the holidays, just hand in hand. Yeah.
I know. And I say this phrase sometimes, and I feel like I need to stop saying it, but I'm like, anxiety is my thing. So that's like, depression is your thing, anxiety is my thing. That's terrible.
Well, I mean, it's the struggle. It's the struggle that we relate to the closest. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, do you use that phrase, the struggle bus? I feel like you have.
Or I have, yes. Yes. Yeah. I don't use it as much as I used to. But yeah, there are many times when I talk about the struggle bus. There are many times I'm on the struggle bus. So yeah.
I know. Well, we laid out a little bit of how we were going to do this today. So you want me to jump in?
Yes.
Okay. And I put an updated every week. I've told Michelle, okay, I'm gonna do a Google share, because we do like Google shared docs, but I kept forgetting. But I did it. I don't know if you saw my updated. But we started last time with depression, talking about, even though it's not good news that there's so many people who struggle. So that's not good news. But the good news is that the research on coping things points to, when you don't feel like you're alone, that gives you some comfort. And the anxiety statistics are like over the top. So we'll post more in the show notes, because there's no point like going into just a ton of detail. But the biggest statistic that is just huge about anxiety is that last year, I think it's last year, and these are all US, 19.1% of people were diagnosed with an anxiety disorder. And that comes from National Institutes of Mental Health. And then the follow-up one, which I had not read before, was 31% of people over, I don't know what period of years, were diagnosed at some point in their life with an anxiety disorder. And I should go back. Anxiety disorders include generalized anxiety disorder, panic disorder, social anxiety disorder, phobias. I think OCD and PTSD are included in there as well. Is that right? Michelle,
Um,
as a type of anxiety disorder?
and they're under a different umbrella,
Okay.
but like in
Okay.
terms of some different symptoms, like anxiety, like type symptoms, yes.
Yeah.
Or at
OCD,
least PTSD is, yeah.
PTSD. Okay.
Mm.
Okay. And it's weird because depending on what I read, um, it talks about them differently, but some of the other statistics come from ADAA, which is Association, no, American, I don't remember what it is. What is ADAA? I
I
can
don't know. I was
never
actually just looking at it thinking,
remember. It's, wait a minute,
maybe,
let me tell you what it is, because I every time I have to look it up, it is Anxiety and Depression Association of America. I always want to call it Association of. So there are some other statistics in there as well, but I don't really feel the need to go into all that in particular unless you think it's helpful.
no, I think that well, we'll talk more about this as we get to these topics, but like all of these descriptions, it's just to help understand, categorize, know what direction to go in. But there's never one, I mean, it's not like a one size fits all. Like we, so
So you mean like for our podcast, we're not diagnosing, we're not treating. That's our disclaimer, by the way. This is not counseling, therapy, diagnosis. But what you're saying is the importance of categorizing them is to know what direction to go with treatment for individual people.
yes, yeah, I mean, like for our purposes today, like our focus is anxiety. And just like what we say with depression, there is such a wide spectrum
Mm,
of what individuals consider anxiety. And you can be experiencing anxiety without a diagnosable mental health disorder. You can be experiencing anxiety and not necessarily fit exactly into one of those categories. So we always look at like the the concern, the area of concern rather than like a diagnosis, I guess. I hate for people to get too tied up
yeah.
on a particular diagnosis.
Yeah, I get that. And like we all, like you might be on this podcast and you're nowhere near having an anxiety disorder, a diagnosis that's controlling your life, but you know during the anxieties or during the holidays, your anxiety might go up. So when we talk about anxiety, we mean like an exaggerated sense of worry or fear. I mean, we all have it. You may have a presentation coming up in front of your colleagues and you're worried about that. So we all have anxieties from time to time. And we aren't going to specifically talk about what it would take to be a disorder, but when it's interfering with your life in some way,
Yes. Yeah.
you know,
And like our whole purpose of our holiday, to talk about this in regards to the holidays, is to help holidays be better,
yes.
to help you enjoy them more and have more peace, family time, and so forth.
Yes. And so then speaking of like statistics over the holidays, so I'll read some of these out and we'll put them in the show notes with the links to the source material too. But so 52% of whoever it was, um, the reporting people, which again, we'll put, you can probably find different statistics from different reporting places, but 52% said an increase in anxiety over the holidays. 66% feel more financial pressure, which was up from the previous year in this report. 24% of those with a diagnosed mental illness report worsening over the holidays, and 40% feel a somewhat negative impact. 66% report loneliness. Man, I'm feeling bad now reading these. 63%, again, of those surveyed found the holidays more stressful than tax season. And then 70%, 71% after the holidays regret not relaxing enough or enjoying the season. So
Yeah.
we're all freaked out during the season. And then after the season, it's like, man, I'm bummed that I didn't enjoy it more.
Oh,
Bye.
wow. I mean, those are really like astounding statistics.
I think so too. And totally, and I think part of us, like you and I are separated by about a decade, but we're still, we're not 20 anymore. And I hate that because I'm much better over the holidays now. In particular, last year and this year have been better. And I hate that part of that has to come with age. And I think it does with some wisdom and experience. But if we can impart some things we've learned, we want to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So statistics. So I had artificial intelligence write a quiz and I said, hey, write a fun, quirky quiz to assess people's anxiety level over the holidays. And I do think so last minute. Did you have a chance to take it?
I absolutely did. I went to get my oil change this morning and I took it while I was waiting for that. And again, anxiety is not like my struggle.
It's not
And
your thing.
so
It's not your
it's not
bus.
my thing. It is not my thing. And so my score was an 11.
Okay. So we're not gonna I was thinking, do we read this to everybody? But so many people listen to a podcast while they're driving. So maybe let's read one or two of them. There's 10 questions and it's only like A, B, and C, and then you score yourself. So maybe
Wait,
we
what was your score?
oh, I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna tell you my score was a 16.
Okay.
But in years past, it probably would have been different. My score is a 16. So why don't we read a couple did any of the questions speak to you? Do you want to read any of them? Maybe we read two, and I can read two, and then talk about the scoring, and then you, watchers and listeners, because I think it was kind of a fun quiz. I'm going to tweak a couple of the questions, and Michelle knows why. Like number two, I'm going to tweak that one. Um, Maybe you can look at it and see why. And then so you can go, but we'll talk about the scores and the categories. But again, I'm happy to read a couple of them. Or do you want to read one?
Yes, I would love to. The first one I'm going to read because my outlook on this has changed so much over the years.
Okay.
When you think about attending a holiday party, your first thought is A, yay, time to mingle and sip eggnog. B, can I slip in, grab a snack, and sneak out without anyone noticing? And C, holiday party, where's my excuse generator? Okay, so my answer now is A. I love the holidays. I love holiday parties. I love getting together with people. I love holiday cookies. Used to, it would have been, I mean, for a while a B, and then early on, probably a C. And so, yeah.
Wait. Okay, wait. Like if you're watching on YouTube, you've seen my mouth open this whole time. Like I've known you for 20 whatever years now.
Uh-huh.
I Okay, first of all, I was surprised that you said yay, but then I was surprised that you were like, I love the holidays, I love the parties, I love the gatherings. I'm like, what?
It's again, I mean, I think what you said is true. I mean, it changes over time and it I think it changes as you become more comfortable with yourself.
Wow.
And I have mentioned how like early on, definitely social anxiety was a struggle. And there are still a few things that can definitely trigger that for me. But like holiday parties, getting to meet people, talk to people, visit with people, that isn't a concern anymore.
Okay. Well, I just learned something about you. And then I feel like I should read number two because I said I was going to change it, but I don't really want to read number two. But I will tell you the reason I'm changing it. Michelle might know is because the word stress is in here and I'm not big on that word.
Mhm.
So I am going to read, okay, number nine. Number nine says, your ideal holiday season includes A, festivities with friends, family, and a sprinkle of self-care. B, a balance between celebrating and hiding under a blanket. Or C, a one-way ticket to a quiet beach far, far away. I actually put A, festivities with friends, family, and a sprinkle of self-care. So I'm
Yeah.
trying to do better. What did you answer for that one?
I put A, and that was a little hard because I love the beach, but
Yeah, I
with
know.
the
I thought about
holidays
you
and
on it.
you wanna be with family. So I did put A for that one too.
And I like the way that it was worded that it still has self-care. Um, so yeah, so our scores, let us tell you about, so it'll tell you how to score it, but 10 to 15 points, which is where Michelle fell. You're a holiday hero. You're all about the holly jolly. The season energizes you and you love the hustle and bustle. While you might experience a little stress, you roll with the holiday punches like a pro. Keep sprinkling that festive cheer. Michelle, I'm so impressed. And I had no idea. So, I fell in the 16 to 24 points, but 16, so I was right on the border. I am the festive fence sitter. You enjoy the holidays, but they can feel like a lot. Whether it's the social demands, shopping, or family dynamics, you might need to set some boundaries and carve out some quiet time. Balance is your key to a merry season. Do you want to read the third one?
Yes, let me go back up. The
Oh,
third
I
one
can go ahead.
25 to 30 is tinsel tide. The holidays, more like holidays, D-A-Z-E. From parties to gift giving to travel, it feels like too much. Take a deep breath and remember it's okay to say no. Simplify where you can and prioritize you this season.
I love that. Did you love that?
I do love that. I do love that. And I think that, it's only fair to point out that we acknowledge it's more difficult when you have like small children. And
Oh,
so like, yeah, Tammy and I, we don't have small children at home. And so the demands are a little different when you have little people that depend on you for everything. So it's
yeah,
a little different, but we're still saying like you get to choose the patterns, the traditions. And so you're not locked into something that you believe, oh, this absolutely has to happen because it happened when I was young. You can create holiday traditions that are um, better, more positive for you and your mental health.
that's really good. That is so true. I'm so glad you said that because, and that goes along well with looking back. There were definitely some things now, hopefully we can pass on that I probably would have done a little bit differently, but there were some things I did really well too. I mean, you probably feel the same way. Um, Okay, so we talked about the statistics, we took the little fun quiz, and then Michelle and I decided to share like our top 5 things that might cause us a little anxiety over the holidays. Is that good? Is that where we are?
Yes, that is where we are. You're not gonna be happy with me on this one, but yes, that is where we are.
Ooh,
Do you want me to go first?
yes, I do now that you said that.
Yeah, because I only have one. Because again, this is not my thing. Last week was my thing, my struggle. This week is not.
Well, no, I'm very happy with you. I'm glad. I mean, I guess this is why I never thought about this before. But it makes sense with our styles and of course our histories and genetics
Mhm.
and all that depression is something more that you battle and that anxiety is more that what and we can like balance each other a little bit.
Yes, yeah, kind of talk each other through.
Sorry, I'm still laughing. All right.
You're laughing about my one?
I'm not. I'm happy about it and I shouldn't be surprised about it. But when you said I wouldn't be happy about it, I thought that maybe you put the word stress in there or something because I'm like,
Oh
what would I
no.
be unhappy about? Okay. I'm ready. What is your one?
My only one really is um like coordinating schedules. And I think sometimes like trying to make sure that get-togethers, events fits everybody's schedule when you have so many grown people doing
Oof.
so many things with their life and you don't want anyone I don't want I should speak for myself. I don't want anybody to be left out. Um, and so sometimes that is difficult. So just trying to make sure all of those things come together. That's probably the only thing that I'm concerned or worry about ahead of time. Like, is all of this going to work out? When do we need to do this? When do we need to do that? That kind of thing.
You know what really speaks to me the most about you saying that you had the one is that there are people watching and listening, including me, who I think sometimes feel like the anxiety parts around the holidays or whatever is just normal and that everybody feels that way. It's like we normalize it. Like, okay, well, everybody feels this way, but that's not true. It's none of the things that any of us feel is it true that everybody feels that way. And that's huge for me. Like, okay, so if everybody doesn't feel this way, let me talk to the people who don't and find out what they do and how just, how they live and knowing again that that it's very complicated and it's not super easy. Um, I don't know, I'm just processing that. Okay. Are you ready for my 5?
I'm ready.
I'm going to do them quickly. And then when we give our tips, I'm going to revisit my 5 because they aren't as much of a struggle as they have been in the past. So I chose them mainly because there are tips that I have to get through them. And I feel like other people feel this way as well. So number 1 is the comparison trap, right? When it comes to um, holiday home or am I doing this as good as other people would? If I host an event and in the past someone else has hosted it, is it going to be as good? So there's that. The second is finances. And, having grown up in a family where like my parents, I didn't know this till I was an adult. Christmas is what I'm talking about, particularly now, but we would get up in the morning, like we lived in poverty. We got kicked out of homes. We had our power cut off. We sometimes ate bologna and that's all we had. But Christmas, we would come out, my sister and I, and the room would be filled with gifts. And they went into debt for that. But I didn't know that till I was an adult. So that's how I grew up, was that you spent a lot of money. So third is family happiness, like when the kids come home for the holidays and is everyone happy? Fourth is conflict. I mean, those of you who are watching and listening, like there was, for example, in 2020, the pandemic, the vaccine, the election, and now we're back to another election and we have a lot of different viewpoints in my family. And then number 5 is, have I left a positive holiday legacy? Like, what am I passing on to my kids? You mentioned that a minute ago versus what was passed on to me. So those are my 5. Okay. What are we doing next? We were talking. I know. I wrote, we were going to compare it to. So we've done research, right? We gave you like the statistics and we did some different research. So we researched why the holidays can be anxiety provoking for people. Do you have those? Do you want me to read those? Like
I do. I'm pulling them up now. So if you want to go ahead and start reading.
So that what you can go ahead or I can go ahead?
Oh, you can go ahead and start reading and I'm pulling them up.
I hope you all love the fact that we I don't know if it's fly by the seat of our pants, but we want the conversation to go where it goes, so we have somewhat of a plan. But here are the ones that came up as the top 5. Number 1 is increased holiday demands or social demands, which Michelle loves, like the holiday gatherings, getting together. And so for some people, especially if you struggle with social anxiety, that can be very difficult. And it's getting together sometimes with people you don't see the rest of the time of the year. It might be people that you don't even like. Sometimes that happens. Number 2 and whenever you want to take over, jump in, let me know, is financial strain, travel, giving gifts. Um, do you feel inadequate because you can't give the gifts that you want to give because you grew up like me, being like, oh, not only did was it a big gift giving, like when my parents divorced, my mom started doing this thing where she would hold back. She did this till until a few years, but she did this until her mental health got so bad and, her dementia and all that. But she would hold back the big gift. And it would be like she would go to the other room and bring out the big gift. And so that was a lot of pressure, you know, for me to do.
Yeah.
Number three,
Family dynamics, family gatherings can bring up past conflicts, unresolved issues leading to heightened tension. The pressure to keep things harmonious can be a major source of stress. So, like what I notice about the first three, and not so much about the last two, and we'll get to those in a second, but the first three all really revolve around someone putting extreme pressure on themselves.
on themselves, right?
Yes. Yeah. Like
Mhm.
to create, control, orchestrate. Um, so yeah.
But you said an important word there too, for those of us who have this battle. There is this sometimes this control thing. So it's not just that we're putting the pressure on ourselves. In a way, we're controlling other people.
Well, and it's like the expectation is number five. Number five says unrealistic expectations. And when you're dealing with so many different people, at so many different places in their lives, like, when we try to create a holiday memory, sometimes we go into it with an expectation of what that's going to be like.
Like a Hallmark
And
movie.
exactly. And when there are so many different like people, emotions, feelings involved, I mean, how often does it really look like exactly what you think it's going to look like?
Yeah, I'm glad you skipped down to five because that's a big one. And watching these movies and getting on social media. One of the adopted girls, I don't think she would mind me sharing this. She was telling us, so if you don't know, Tim and I have 8 kids together. He adopted 4 of his sister's kids. And she was telling us a few years ago that growing up with us, and she was with us for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, that she always wanted the perfect family and that she would watch movies and she wanted the perfect this and the perfect that. And she felt like that wasn't happening. But now as an adult, she goes back and looks at some of the pictures and she thinks about some of the things that we did together and she realizes that there is no perfect and that
Right.
we had a great time together and that meant so much to me. So you out there, if you have grown up thinking your family wasn't enough or didn't do enough, maybe rethink that even with my family, having did what they did, I'm like, they did what they thought was right and they did the best that they could. So I appreciate that. And then what did we miss? We did one, two, three.
Number four,
Oh,
feelings of
yeah.
loneliness and isolation. And I feel like this one is it's more complicated for many reasons. It's complicated because and again, I would probably hone in on this one, but it's true for the other ones as well. Like depression, anxiety, especially clinical depression and anxiety, it lies to us. Like it
Mm,
lies to us and tells us we're alone. It lies to us and tells us we're responsible for everything. And that the world will fall apart if we mess up and or if things don't go great. And so loneliness and isolation, I'm been blessed to be able to lead a 12-step group for Celebrate Recovery Ministry I've talked about before. And I have a wonderful group of ladies in there. And one of the questions in that 12-step series, because what it is, it's a 4 book series that you work through. And you could be in there for anything from like food issues, past hurts, abuse, any type of substance use. And one of the questions is loneliness a choice?
oh, wow.
And so, I know that there are a lot of different perspectives on that. And so sometimes we can be in a room full of people and still feel lonely. And, you know, I don't know that that's always a choice. I think that sometimes there's something else going on that's creating that feeling, whether it's, depression definitely creates a sense of loneliness and isolation. And so I think during the holidays, if you're already feeling alone, distant from family and friends, it can just make that feeling a little more amplified.
It's 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 so complicated, isn't it? I mean, you can't just lump everything together into loneliness is this or and because there is such that emphasis on being together. So yeah, you can feel lonely when you're with people. But one thing I just want to throw out there is that, my youngest son, Michael, hasn't been able to come home for Thanksgiving since he moved away because it's so expensive. He can't afford to
Mhm.
just fly home and then fly right back. So he hasn't spent Thanksgiving at home in a few years. And that's hard for me because that's my favorite holiday. But I remember him telling me a couple of years ago that a friend of his said he was welcome to come with him if you wanted to. And that was so nice. But I just want to encourage you. I know it sounds like a minor thing, but I talk about language a lot. When someone says you're welcome to come if you want to, it feels like a better way would be to say we would love for you to come be with our family. Does that
Yeah.
sound just to make a person feel like you really want them there? And if we could all be on the lookout just for someone who might need some place to be and just say we would love to have you, versus
But I think, yeah, I think it makes a huge difference. And then kind of like there's a lot we can do if we are welcoming someone else, like into our home for the holidays to make them feel welcome. I can remember not long after I was divorced, not having anywhere to go for Thanksgiving for some different reasons, and being asked to come to someone else's home, and I did. Um, and now thinking back, my perspective would be completely different. But at the time, it can still be hard for the person because you're seeing someone else's family.
yes.
And so it's like to some degree, if you can, try to focus on the positives and not the loss. And sometimes you can and sometimes you can't. It kind of just depends on where you are. But it's easy to look at that and be like, oh, what a great family. I'm so sad that this isn't like where I am right now, like that type of thing. So,
And it goes both ways, right? So,
mhm.
like if you do, and I'm thinking about this feelings of loneliness and isolation that sounds more like depression, like you could feel depressed. But for someone who is anxious, this could lead to like ruminating and worrying and maybe even panic so or avoiding, but it's both ways. Like if we invite someone into our homes just the best that we can, because we're never responsible, you're not responsible to fix people or to just make them feel a certain way, but as best as we can recognize that could be awkward and try to remember just to bring them into a conversation is best, just being a host or a hostess. But then on the other side, like Michelle said, if you are being a part of someone else's rituals and family and just try to interject be a part of that rather than holding back and feeling bad, I guess.
Well, and yeah, like one of the things that just with these five, I'm just kind of thinking through and like the one part of anxiety that I have talked about that has been a struggle for me in my life is social anxiety. Not really as much now, but definitely when I was younger, and kind of acknowledging that whatever the struggle is, whether it's social anxiety, depression, anxiety, then it's almost like a self-fulfilling concern. And when I say that, I mean, so like I'm socially anxious, so I'm worried, like the definition of social anxiety is just extreme worry, something embarrassing is going to happen. You're not going to be able to think of what to say. People might be thinking negatively of you.
They're going to judge
And
me. I'm not as,
yes,
yeah.
yeah. And in that vein, like you then have a hard time talking, and you have a hard time like fitting into conversations, and you do have a hard, I mean, and so like it's like, oh, like are
Okay. Yeah.
people not talking to me because I'm being super awkward right now? I mean, like that's kind of the thing. And like that changed my whole life to realize that the way I was interacting with the world had like was what was more driving how the world was interacting with me, and not vice versa, if that makes sense. I don't know if that
Yes,
came out correctly, but
it did.
yeah, like when I am more open and talkative and interactive, then that's what you get back.
Wow.
Yes.
That's huge. I'm going to put a link to in the show notes. Lisa Turkhurst, who is a Christian author, speaker. She has a book called Uninvited. And I did a Bible study with some of my friends, and it's about that feeling like you're left out. And one of the first, so she had a video that goes with it. One of the first things she asked was a story or something about like if you are in a group of people that you don't know, like maybe you go to a women's event and you're by yourself, do you like get on your phone so that you don't feel like you're weirdly alone and people are judging you? And I've done that before, just
Yeah.
like I don't know who to talk to, so I'm just gonna pretend like I'm answering an email, just to feel less weird. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think too, like, before, if I'm gonna step out of my comfort zone, and there's another woman who's checking her phone who may be anxious as well, and I'm gonna go talk with her. If I like maybe the woman was really busy and she did not respond well, then that would have just like shut me down. But now I'm just like, "No, I'm gonna go talk to another woman." I mean, like, it's you learn not to be crushed by like attempts setbacks. So,
That's so good. That's really good.
oh, thank you.
Okay, so we've talked about statistics, we've talked about things that are can provoke our anxiety. We took the quiz, we talked about what the research shows about how the holidays can provoke anxiety. Can I put it onto you, and you don't have to use these notes? We should probably take a minute to talk about some of the signs and symptoms to look for as far as that you might be experiencing some anxiety.
Yes. So, um, lots of different, like we talked about before, there are different types of anxiety: social anxiety, generalized anxiety. I just talked about what social anxiety was. Generalized anxiety is more kind of a baseline of worry, to where if you're awake, you're worried about random things that may never even happen. And like generalized anxiety can be really difficult, because if you do have a calm moment, a lot of times people then start to worry about what it is they think they've
We
forgotten
just
that they're
talked
supposed
about
to be
this.
worrying about that. Yeah. And that's kind of like a hallmark sign of like generalized anxiety. It's like there's just constant worry. And it can be something like, I'm worried that if I get in the car to go to the store, that the tire will come off the car. And then you say, well, has that ever happened? No, but like it's a thought that pops into my mind. And so, like, one of the things that can be helpful, um, and I know this falls more under the tips, but one of the things that can be helpful is kind of like reality testing. Okay, how likely is that to happen? And what is the worst case scenario if it does happen? And so oftentimes, like if you walk down through the possibilities, the actual possibility is by far less fear-wise than the fear of the anxiety when it first comes up.
Yeah.
So
We could probably put that as part of the tools. We can put together like yeah,
yes.
in the because I think we're going to do an activity sheet for this one. We didn't do it for depression, but
And
um
then I'm gonna talk for just a second about anxiety and panic attacks, because I know that those are words that you hear. It may be definitely something you've experienced. So panic attacks generally, like by definition, they don't have a trigger. They are fairly short. They're like 3, 5 minutes, not very long, but severe. Hard to breathe, chest pain. A lot of times people, when they experience them, they feel like they're having heart attack. And one of the scary parts is because it's not triggered by anything, it just seems to come out of nowhere. So then there's a fear that goes along with it that it's going to happen again.
Mm-hmm.
And anxiety attacks are different. They usually do have a trigger and they can last minutes, hours, half the day. And they are usually, they could be triggered by anything, like a lot of people sometimes is a trigger for someone. And they're still uncomfortable. The symptoms are still racing heart. You may be breathing faster, sweaty hands, and so forth, really uncomfortable, but not to the degree of the symptoms you're having with the
With
panic attack. So yeah. So I mean, those are some of the common symptoms. You probably like have some, other things. I like the rapid thoughts, like the ruminative worry. How like thoughts can just cascade when it comes to worry and take you down a rabbit trail where, one minute you know, can't find your keys and the next minute someone has them and comes in and kills your whole family. Like that's kind of like the rabbit hole of what anxiety can do.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And that I'll put a link to that book Chatter. I've mentioned that a couple times. And that's what the definition there, he talks about chatter is like we are always going to have self-talk unless you have a stroke or some other debilitation of your brain. Your brain is always going to be talking. But a chatter, he calls it chatter when it spirals and you can't move off of that. Like what you just said, I lost my keys and now somebody's going to break in and kill my family. And it's
Yeah.
that spiral, typically based on something unique to you. Like I would never spiral that way, of key, someone's going to kill my family, even though my house has been broken into in the middle of the night and I've been carjacked, but that's
Yeah.
my trigger. But if somebody writes me from work and says, "Hey, we need to talk for a minute," I could spiral to, "Okay, well, I'm a terrible speaker and nobody's ever going to want me again, and now I'm gonna have no money." And
I
that
mean, you made a great point. It like the trigger is, I mean, it's dependent on the person, their experiences, things that have happened before. And yeah,
well, we
I don't
will
want to jump too much into the tools
the tools.
yet.
We will put, again, because it's not a diagnostic thing, but we'll just put links to different places you all can go. We put a lot of the mental health links in there every single week, but we'll put some additional things in there as well. So yeah, the most important part is to do some tips. So I don't know. I have some things that I've done for each of my 5, but I'll let you start first because first of all, you had one, and second of all, you may have some different things, and then we can talk about the ones that we have that are kind of research based.
And so for mine, um, it's
The scheduling, like making sure everything is working, and
yeah, it's like just formulating a plan, like putting like messages out, okay, like what's availability, and then it either works or it doesn't. And so like oftentimes the worry is worse. I mean, and I think that's true with anxiety in general. The worry, oh, this isn't going to work out. Like, why am I worrying about that if I have no idea if it's going to work out? Like that's kind of one of those things where like it's the
yeah,
planning aspect of things. It'll all work out. We'll all make it happen. Um, Everybody is generally, I'm very lucky in my family, pretty amicable to, what needs to happen. So the planning aspect and making sure I understand that things do not have to look a certain way or be perfect.
that is so good. So having a plan, which part of me, I don't know if I think this is what you're saying too, is taking it out of your brain and putting it into like a format, not just rehashing it in your head over and over and over again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't need to take up much space.
It's so funny though, for those of us who are on this bus, when you just said, and if it works, it works. And I'm like, oh, sure. If it works, it works. But what if it doesn't work? And I am so much better. I am so much, and Michelle is so much better, like with her, some of the depression struggles. We're both just so much better, but we
Mhm.
still have some things. And that's what makes us want to talk to you. It's like, what do we do about our things? All right, you ready for my five?
I'm ready.
They're going to be fast. And then by the way, we're going to do like a whole session on, I think, some sort of like being present and self care and all that. So, self care is huge, but we're not going to spend a lot of time talking about some of those things today. But I chose these five, and I'm just going to go quickly because these are things that I have worked on. So, the first one that I said was difficult for me over the holidays is comparison. Growing up in poverty, having the health department called on us, our house was disgusting. So for so many years, I wanted everything to look perfect and be perfect. But now, so I have this group of friends that they all have really lovely houses, and a couple of them at least, that, well, all of them, they decorate and everything is just so when we go over there, they all praise the other women about their homes. But when they come here, there's not that praise. And at first it was like, huh. But now we did this activity where we each talked about each other and our strengths. And they all praise me for being kind and compassionate and meeting people where they are. So here's how I've gotten through the comparison is, what is your identity and who do you want to be? I don't care anymore. My house is clean. I put up decorations, but I do not it doesn't give me any pleasure to try to, I mean, we have a small house now. So I, that's who I want to be. I want to be someone who, if you think about who I am, then it's okay with me if my house and the perfect holiday and the right plates and having the 20 courses, it's okay if I don't do that anymore. So I really encourage you to ask yourself who you are and who you want to be. I'm just going to keep talking, by the way, Michelle, unless you want to interject. So at any point. Number two is the finances. And I told you the way that we grew up. But over the years now, like asking yourself truly what's important about the holiday that you're celebrating and having a conversation with your family. There have been years where, for example, we always do PJs. That's a big thing for a lot of people. But there was a year, 6, 7 year, I don't even know how long ago, we couldn't, it was like we have to trim back, and we talked to the family. My daughter bought the PJs. It was the sweetest thing. And it wasn't like she was upset about it. So really decide what the holiday is, what's important. Talk to your family about that. Don't just sorry, I feel I'm being preachy now, but I had to stop basing what my family did raising me with what I decided to do. And that took a long time, by the way. Number
I
three.
just realized something from what you said that was really, I mean, in that instance, it allowed her to be a part. So, like, if, you know, in moments where you're trying to like orchestrate and make things perfect for others, sometimes you
Yeah,
steal from them an opportunity to be a part. So that's awesome.
that's really sweet. I'm going to tell you said that. And that is exactly what you said because it leads to number three, everybody being happy, family happiness. So my kids, it's changed a little bit now, but my three biological who had all moved away every holiday, they would come home at least over Christmas and stay. And I would always be on edge, like always on edge, anxious before they got here, anxious the whole time. And I finally realized that just the fact, and if you're listening, children, or watching, we've had the conversation, just the fact that knowing they were here was very anxiety provoking. And I finally realized it was because I was trying to do everything to make them happy. I have a set get up and go to bed time. I get up very early, between 4 and 5. I go to bed between 8 and I'm asleep by 9. And when they were here, I would feel the need to change that, like to make them happy, to do everything to make them happy. And it was just making us all miserable. So I remember last year I had a conversation with my older son, who's really the only one who stays here as long. And I said, listen, and he's a night owl. I'm like, I love you and I'm so happy when you're here, but I need to talk about some things where I I got to go to bed at that time. And I would feel bad going to bed, right? Like they're here. And I would feel like we had to spend 24/7 together. But we had the conversation and it was fine. It was fine.
Yeah,
We cannot make everyone happy, right?
absolutely.
Number 4, conflict. Hate it, hate it, hate it. Um, and political divisiveness, COVID divisiveness. So listen, just have, if that's an issue, just like speak out loud. These topics are off limits. We're not talking about them over the holidays. Just, I mean, that's not going to take care of all conflict, but at least, be okay that not everybody's going to agree, but some topics, just take them off the board. And then number 5, just when you think about trying to create memories, have I left a positive legacy? I don't know. There are some things, yes, some things, no. But I think the thing to remind yourself is, because Michelle brought up earlier, you know, that you may have small children, da da da. It is never too late. And that's what I told myself. It is never too late to talk to your family about what you want the holidays to look like, to listen to them. Um, Here's the one thing I was good at. I always let my kids decorate the tree. Bless you. Y'all didn't hear it, but I saw it. Michelle sneezing. I was okay if they put 25 ornaments on one side of the tree and left the other side blank. I don't know why, but I was always okay letting them do that. But think about what you want your legacy to be and just remember that it's never too late. And that's why it's important to balance, taking care of yourself with taking care of others. That's all I got.
Absolutely.
All
Perfect.
right, on to you. Well, we have the ones that were the research things, but what else do you have?
So I think that just, to reiterate what you said, I mean, what do you want the holidays to look like? And what are the things that are the most important? Like the family time, the laughter, all of that versus presentation of things and so forth. And I mean, I know that that's easier said than done because a lot of that's tied in tradition. And so if that is the tradition that you've grown up with and what you have done, that Thanksgiving, Christmas dinner need to be served on china and all of that, like that's you know, obviously we understand that's a hard habit to break, but at the same time, you get to create what you want it to look like.
Can
It's
I
not like, yes.
No, can I just about the plates? Because that was I have plates that belong to my grandmother, maybe my great grandmother. And when my house burned down in 94, they survived the fire. So some of them have little black chars on them, and we always ate off those plates. Well, there came a point where I started resenting that because you can't put them in the dishwasher. So we would have 20 people, and then I was just washing and washing and washing. So then I stopped using them. But last year, I was like, I love using these plates. And so I just reframed it about hand washing them. I was like, so it's my choice. There have been times where we've had paper plates or other things. But in the years where I choose to use them, which I probably will, Thanksgiving, I love, then I'm just kind of reframing that 30 minutes of washing them was worth that important tradition to me.
Yeah, what a great reminder. You get to choose.
Get
And
to
it just because you choose one thing this year doesn't mean you have to choose the same thing
Yeah.
next year. And so the next thing I would say is it is not your responsibility to be the caretaker of other people's happiness and emotions.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you.
I mean, really, we can only, those are things that we can only work on for ourselves. And so if someone gets upset, it isn't because of anything that you should have done differently or anything like that. So I think that is an important thing to remember. If somebody breaks the rule about not talking about politics and gets in a big fight, then you still have permission to be happy even if they're not.
Ooh, ooh, that is so good.
Yeah.
You don't have to join their emotion. You can keep your own.
Right. And you don't have to let it ruin your joy in what you're doing because, someone else is emotionally dysregulated. That's their responsibility to take care of family wise.
That's beautiful. Beautiful.
Yes. And so like one of the tips that someone shared with me a long time ago was, and it was time when there was like some tension, some things going on family wise, and they said, if you have certain Bible verses, certain things that are very peaceful, calming, relaxing for you, and you're at home and you find yourself being triggered by some things, then you can always like just have cards. And there was actually a lady, because this was from a church group, and there was actually a lady within the group who loved to make cards for people. So she would give us these prayer cards.
Oh.
And so you could kind of pull the ones that were the most calming and like go to the bathroom if you had to, pull them out of your purse and read those verses if you needed a moment just to reset and rethink through things. And because one of the things, like coming from a recovery perspective, I know I feel like I'm kind of jumping all over the place, but one of the
No,
things
you're
recovery
fine.
perspective wise is, oftentimes like family of origins is kind of where some of that dysfunctional pattern started. And so when you go back there, it can be a trigger. So finding an out for yourself, finding a way to calm down, to recognize the trigger, to take care of that without acting on it.
That's so good. You have to send me these things in writing so I can put them in there.
Okay.
Well,
From the list, is there anything else you would like to talk about?
no, I think that let me just read the list and we'll post the details in the show notes because I don't want to keep these people too much longer. But here's the list that the research shows. So I'll just read them. Number 1, take the pressure off, remembering that things don't have to be perfect. Number 2, engage in meaningful connections, focusing on others during the social events, just being outward focused. Number 3, limit alcohol as a coping tool.
We talked about that last week.
We did. Number 4, keep it simple so you don't have to do everything. You don't have to do all the parties or all the traditions. Number 5, schedule worry time. That's a tool sometimes with anxiety that you tell yourself, okay, I'm going to sit down for 10 minutes and then I'm going to let it go. That never worked for me, but it's a tool. Do you want me to read the rest?
Yes.
Okay. Number 6, plan ahead for travel related anxiety. So plan and get things done. If that's something that bothers you a lot, start early, set yourself a reminder. Number 7, learn to say no. Skip things that don't serve you well. Number 8, support your children through holiday anxiety. And I think Michelle has some resources we'll share about supporting your children. And number 9, practice mindfulness and relaxation, which is going to be part of, I think, one of our upcoming episodes.
Yeah.
That's all I have. What about you?
That's all I have too.
I think we were pretty organized today. I'm going to say I think we nailed
More so than usual.
it. I think we nailed it. I think we did. So
I'm putting my Christmas tree up today. So
oh, you are before Thanksgiving. All right.
I am. It's just a good day, and so
It's okay.
today.
Well, enjoy. I'll be putting mine up probably the day after Thanksgiving. I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, at some point. All right. Well, thanks everybody for being here again, and send us your thoughts, your love, your prayers, your ideas. You'll have like the tool in the show notes. Take that little quirky quiz. Let us know what your score is. And just follow us on social media and continue to share it with your friends and all the things. So, and we'll be with you before Thanksgiving, so we won't wish you happy Thanksgiving yet. But we will say, until
next time, consider
yourself
hugged.
Bye.